Six-Pack Podcast. So let me get up to the front page here where I belong. We'll let pre-production stuff checking it out and still can't get on the right page. So the Joe Six-Pack Racing League, this is Season 3, Week 10. We are live on Twitch right now. And for download later on, you can pick us up on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. Now I'd like to introduce our guest for this evening, James East from Team Goon Squad Broadcasting. James, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
Excellent. I see I just typed your name wrong up there on the top. It's broadcasting. I'm not a good typer, but anyway, Team Goon Squad. So tell me a little bit about Team Goon Squad. Number one, how'd you come up with such a cool name there?
It started off way back in the mid-2000s when I raced dirt bikes for fun. It was kind of a self-depreciating joke. So for dirt bikes, motocross, a goon would be the guy that shows up to the dirt bike track wearing a helmet, some wrong-fitting boots, blue jeans, and maybe a hoodie. So the guy that doesn't look the part, but he's going out there, he's crashing his rear end off and just kind of living for the moment.
Gotcha.
So we started doing some endurance racing and dirt bikes and wanted to make fun of ourselves a little bit.
Gotcha. So I see some pictures there. I take it those are you on your bike when you were doing motorcycle racing?
Yeah, so after I did dirt bikes from 2006, 2012, 2013, I started racing sport bikes. That's what my dad did before me. So I kind of wanted to emulate what he was doing because he's always been like my number one fan, or I'm number one fan. I've been his number one fan.
Okay.
And got into asphalt racing and never looked back.
Wow. So you said on your bio you sent me that you've raced all across the East Coast. Did you ever do New Hampshire Motor Speedway?
We did not. The series I ran didn't run there for motorcycles. I truthfully don't know if they run bikes there or not, but it was far south of Daytona. I think the northernmost track was probably Groton in Michigan or Mid-Ohio, Pennsylvania, or New Jersey. It was a few tracks way up there.
Wow, so you really did get on the East Coast. And what got you into motorcycle racing? And how old were you? Let's just jump back to the start. How old were you when you first got hooked on racing?
Started racing dirt bikes at the age of 12 and did that for a very long time. I raced motocross bikes in the woods. It was called hare scrambles. So we'd run 50, 60-mile races through the woods.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the day, you kind of look at yourself and go, why on earth did I pay money to do that? And then you'd wait 2 weeks and you'd go do it again. And then I switched to asphalt racing because that's what, again, my old man always did. And I was like, man, that's the goal. I want to get out there with those guys. And just kind of went for it. I think, again, that was 2013 I switched to asphalt, I believe.
Okay. And what, of course, is a huge difference. What's difference in preparing for asphalt motorcycle racing versus dirt? What's your expectations, and how do you prepare mentally and physically for the different ones? Because they're obviously difficult sports. I mean, I see these guys up at a photographer friend of mine went up to New Hampshire and taking the photographs of these guys going around the turns like with their knees on the ground. That would scare the crap out of me. So what would you, your favorite, asphalt or dirt? And how do you prepare for each one to get ready?
Yeah, asphalt for sure. It was a lot easier on my body. Now, when things went wrong, they went really, really wrong because you're going triple-digit speeds. And very, very fortunately, I didn't have that issues. And even the dirt bike racing, your max speed in the woods is maybe 30, 40 miles an hour, but there was trees everywhere, and boy, are they unforgiving. So for preparation, I'd say I think the physicality was definitely a little bit easier in the asphalt side of things because you're not wrestling with the bike so much through the woods over a 2-hour race unless you get into endurance motorcycle racing. And I think the biggest thing I'd ever tell somebody if they're getting into it is go ahead and set aside a few life savings if you want to make the switch to asphalt, because it is just so comically expensive compared to dirt racing. I would assume the same if you're racing dirt, oval, and cars and then go to a bigger series in asphalt as well. Just everything is exponentially more expensive.
Are you finding, if you're still in contact with anybody doing the motorcycle racing, are you finding the smaller tracks having a hard time staying on, like dirt racing for cars and such like that?
Not so much. The dirt bike racing was pretty good because they would, from my understanding, they would basically rent the property from big plots, especially down here in Georgia, and the property would get all the entry fees. So if you have 500 people or so coming for a dirt bike race at I don't know what it is, 10, $20 a pop. It pays for itself pretty quickly. And then for motorcycles, these smaller tracks, probably smallest local track is Little Talladega, about 45 minutes away from Big Talladega, that is world renowned. And it's a cheaper track to run, so therefore a cheaper track to rent compared to Barber Motorsports Road Atlanta. So you get out there and still get relatively inexpensive fun, and the track's not going to hurt as badly at the end of the day.
Gotcha. So what made you not or decide not to race motorcycles anymore?
I ran out of money, Greg. My beat up my body. I ran out of money, and I was like, oh boy, I could have bought a house somewhere if I didn't race for 2 or 3 years across the country. So definitely financial woes are what's keeping me off the track right now. And that kind of segues into why I'm building a broadcast company and an eBay business as well, is kind of doing whatever I have to get back out on track before I'm just too old and my body can't afford crashing anymore.
Oh, I understand that. I was kind of forced into retirement 5.5 years ago. I was with like we chatted before we went on. I'm a lawn and garden designer by trade, and also spent a lot of time in media, talk radio, a little bit of TV, writing for newspapers, photography. And the job I had for 32 years, I was lawn and garden buyer for one of the largest independent garden centers in the country. And the two brothers that ran it got up in their age, 80s, like that. And the two sons took over, and all of a sudden they bring in HR. They call me into the office July 1st, 5 years ago, and said, bye, you're done. Like, wow, okay. So definitely know the thing with the finances there, but landed on my feet, and we're doing fine. What would you say would be the cost on asphalt motorcycles to run your average race, let's say in a decent series? How much do you lay out for that, and how easy did you?
Kind of the going rate, plus or minus, is kind of set aside $1,000 per weekend, running 1 or 2 classes a day for 2 days. So that includes tires, entry fees, your yearly race license, the transponder rental, and that's if everything goes really, really well and you don't send yourself skipping down the asphalt, because then it gets way, way worse. And it could be cheaper because, much like ovals, much like professional car racing, there's definitely feeder classes where you can get into a really inexpensive, a $2,000 bike, a set of tires will last you half the season, and then all the way up to the big dogs where you're putting on a fresh set of slicks every time you go out on track and just chewing through money.
Got it. And that doesn't include travel and food, of course, right?
Yeah, correct. Whenever I pitch sponsorships to different companies, I never included the food part, because my mindset is, well, I got to eat anyway, so it really doesn't account for the race budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, the travel's pretty rough, and you can do it in the back of a pickup truck and a tent, or you can be one of the guys with an A-class RV and a huge enclosed trailer and all that sorts. But you can definitely get into it without really hurting yourself financially, but it's one of those things, and as a race fan and a racer yourself, it gets addicting really, really quickly. And even with sim race, you're like, all right, cool, I'm here. Now I need that new wheel. Now I need new pedals. And it just keeps multiplying out of nowhere.
Yep. My son and I, he got into it first, and we started out, it was so funny. He saved up his allowance, and he bought one of those $39 wheels that clamp onto your desk. He had a laptop, so we started out on the laptop, and then we moved the whole setup downstairs. I broadcast my studios downstairs, and it's also my office, and it's right next to the race room. And then we bought a rig from Open Wheeler, and I got the Logitech entry-level wheel. It's like the G29 or 290, which is good enough for me. I've had it for 5 years. I'm not spending $5,000 on a wheel and a motion setup. But then we had our little 24-inch monitor, and we're actually winning races with that. And then I went out and I bought a big 50-inch monitor, and I'm like, how did we ever race on that little 24-inch screen sitting on the floor? But then we raised everything up, and all the accoutrements that go with it. So yeah, you can spend a ton of money on that. How easy was it to get sponsors for you?
For road racing, it wasn't super bad. And this is going to sound extremely narcissistic, but when you can sell yourself well, your race performance doesn't matter as much. Because at my best, I was a mid-pack racer. I was not the top dog in any series, in any class. I was resoundingly middle of the pack. But
Got
what
it.
I was fairly good at was selling myself to companies and saying, "Hey, I can be the cheapest sales rep you've never hired. So for X
That's a good
amount,
point.
it's going to cost you this much to support the season.
Yeah.
I know what an outside sales rep gets paid. I know what your field marketing guys get paid.
Hmm.
Let me send you customers, and this will be a 10 times ROI for you guys, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it." And I'm going to plug my friends Amsoil, some of the coolest sponsors I've ever had, the oil company.
Yeah.
Mike and Dana, they live close to me. They would come out with their camper, set up an Amsoil tent, and help me out throughout the season and provide, the usual stuff, oils and filters and stuff like that. But they'd cook me dinners at the trackside,
Oh
and I'd
man,
have a
that's
place
great.
to sleep that wasn't my van. I was like, oh, you guys are awesome. And then in return, I'd go to car shows with those guys or go to parades and help hype up their products. So I think the biggest thing is it's got to be mutually beneficial for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's a real
Exactly.
life racing career,
Yep.
a sim racing career, or in your case, plug in the podcast and
Yep.
getting the cool people on like McConey a couple weeks ago. It's if it's mutually beneficial for everybody, everybody wins. Like there's no downsides here.
No, it's true. And I've had every one of my guests that's been on, they want to come back on as soon as possible. And they said, "Oh, you did a great job." And I'm like, "No, you guests do the job." Yeah, it's got to be mutually beneficial for on the sponsorship end. And I was listening to Motor Racing Network with Dave Moody on the NASCAR channel on Sirius XM, and he said, he goes, "Yeah, you get these guys." He goes, "Think about this. You're trying to get a sponsor for your car. So you sit down with the guys and go, well, how much is it going to cost me? Throw a number out, $5 million a year. How many times am I going to be on TV? We don't know. How many races you going to win? We don't know." And then they find out that not only to make it work, the sponsor's got to come up with the money. Then the driver has to, and the team has to respond by doing public appearances. And then it's going to cost the sponsor another $5 million because they got to show up on the track to hand out the merch to the on the fan walk. And it's a lot more than just throwing your name on a car, is you got to back it up with advertising outside of that to really make it work. So yeah, it's definitely a two-way street. And you see with NASCAR right now, the drivers a lot of times have to bring sponsors with them. You could be going to one of the best teams that you could race with, and if you're a good driver but you're not bringing something to the table these days, chances are you're not going to get a very good ride until like bringing some money with you. So it helps to have a little bit of personality.
You're more in the loop than I am for sure when it comes to the big four-wheel racing. And this is something I've seen in the past with motorcycles. So if you want to get a factory ride for motorcycles at the highest level, you have to show up with your sponsorship money already.
Yes.
Last time I heard for a middle of the road ride was $100,000 for them to show up with the bike, the big rig, and the support for the season. So I don't know, is that the same thing on the car side where you're expected to have X amount to get a seat for the season? Or is it like the good old days where people are actually getting paid still?
No, the top drivers, and I know very little about the money structure, but just from what I'm hearing, listening to different broadcasts and such, that I guess you could get a deal where you get paid X dollars a year, and if you're really really good, a percentage of what the car wins. It all depends. I mean, you hear like Kyle Busch making $8 million a year, plus any sponsorships and stuff like that, outside stuff. What am I? What's the word? I'm trying to think. Endorsements, like that.
Okay, yeah.
So on that end, and that's what I've heard is, like I said, you could be a good driver, but if you're not a big name and you're a good driver, and you think you deserve a ride, but if you're not showing up with some sponsors already with you, a lot of teams may not talk to you because it's so expensive to run. So let's talk about some of the leagues that you are broadcasting right here. Tell me about the FVG PC Truck Series. What's that all about?
Oh man, so the cool. I'm gonna preface this with everybody I work with is really really cool. I sent you that list. I'm very fortunate
Yep.
to the point where I can kind of pick and choose who I work with, just because there's only so many time slots.
Yep.
So everybody I work with is fantastic. Jeff with FEG PC, he builds custom computers with sim enthusiasts in mind. Was probably one of my first big gigs I've booked, and I've worked with those guys for almost a full year now. They run trucks on Mondays, and I'm going to hammer on this a bunch, but in each of these leagues is just a goofy, dysfunctional family amongst all the guys. So I'm sure you go with the six-pack guys. The racing's probably pretty good, but the people you surround yourself with multiple times a week has to be fantastic, or you're going to lose your guys, and it's
Yeah,
just not as much fun.
that's true. So, so they race on iRacing.
Yeah, so everybody I cover now is on iRacing. I've had the chance to work with a group called Supers. They do the super modifieds, and they do something wild that still blows my mind. They race and broadcast their own events on R Factor 2, I believe it is, that has the mod for the super modifieds. And they also use a very old version of NASCAR Heat.
Oh
So you were
wow!
kind of talking about you and your son just getting into it, the wheel mounted, sit on the floor, and your old school TV.
Yeah,
That's what some of these guys are doing over at their series, just because it's so cost affordable, and you can run it on your grandmother's toaster and still be able to get out there and race. And I want to say their average age is probably pushing 55, 60. So just a hugely unique group of guys over there.
and 55, 60. Yeah, I'll be 60 in March. So I'm the old guy in our league, and I think we have the guy that won our truck championship last night for season 3. He's 56. Everybody else in the league is in their 20s and 30s. Couple of them retired Marines and such are in their 40s, but I'm like the grandfather. I tell you, I'll be 60, but I feel like I'm about 30.
Yeah, it's a
So
racer thing. We don't grow up.
no, we just grow old, and our toys get more expensive.
Yeah, and the
And
body hurts so bad on Monday mornings.
you know, I don't know how these professional drivers do it because I know when I'm sitting in my rig and I'm doing a 90-minute race, I'm physically exhausted when I get done. I cannot imagine sitting in a car, 130 degrees inside with all that noise and the helmet and everything on and not be totally spent after a race because even on a simulator, if you're involved in close pack racing for the entire race, it's stressful. It really wears you out. I just don't
Yeah,
know how.
mentally taxing.
Yes, very. What's the Team Goon Squad Pro Street Stocks? That is that a
So
league you guys
back
do, or do you just sponsor the league?
No, we run that one in house. Back before I was broadcasting full time, I had a lot more time to race, which is ironic enough. But I was looking for a street stock league that was broadcasted. I wanted to go race out for beer money, so even if it's a $5-10 entry for the season, it's a little bit something to chase and kind of gives me that scratches that itch of competitiveness again. Again, at the end of the day, we're racing pretend cars on pretend tracks on the internet, so you got to enjoy it. But I wasn't super happy with what I found across the internet with different leagues, kind of,
Okay.
or that specific thing I was looking for. So we
Yep.
decided to build it ourselves. And
Ah,
if
cool.
you build it, they will come. If you can advertise.
Got it. Um, and it's the street stocks. You do the old school paints, or is it all modern?
It's whatever the guys want to do. So you can do up to 4 car teams, and I think on average we fielded about 20 cars per
Okay.
race our first season. So not fantastic, but also not terrible at all compared to some leagues that are hurting for guys. So I think what my biggest focus on, Greg, is trying to again circle back to surround myself with guys that I want to hang out with for 2 or 3 hours a week and
Yeah.
brush shoulders with more so than I'm looking for fantastic world class racers. Because at the end of the day, if I don't want to hop on and hang out with all the guys, I don't want to run the series. If it's not fun for me,
No, of course not.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So, what's the experience in some of your leagues that you race in? I mean, your I ratings for you guys like us. We have a I rating cap of 2,000 for our leagues. Where we call it our thing is racing for the rest of us, light on rules, long on fun. So we have a cap of 2,000 and under for I rating and safety rating rookie 2.0 to A 4.0. Where does your pro stock league fit because compared to that?
Generally, a fairly high IR, average is kind of what we've seen just since it is guys come out trying to chase some money. And then what I've seen with other leagues that have an IR cap but are still kind of quasi a money league, there's prize and stuff at the line. I've seen guys from a broadcaster's point of view tank their IR to get into their series.
Yep.
So we just run it wide open. I don't care how good or bad you are. If you can get around the track safely and not be a hazard to yourself and others, hey, come out and race with us. And realistically, there's about 5 guys every week that have a chance of bringing home a win.
Okay.
But then we try and reward or entice guys that maybe aren't full blown backmarker status, but still want to come out and race a good, clean broadcasted series, and give bonuses to the cleanest driver and stuff like that. And with the team aspect, I attempt to give everybody something to chase, because nobody wants to go out there and get 13th every week and just go home with sad and tired.
Oh, I hear you. That's kind of the way we are. We're light on rules. We have an admin meeting on Wednesdays. We review the past week. And we had 4 admins, but since we're adding a road course league in January, the Formula V series, I added 3 more admins just to help out, because like I said, the podcast is growing. I'm doing it 2-3 nights a week, and we do have fun. And we were season 1. We were doing a once a month money race just to try to get people to come out, and we have 20 to 22 cars per race. On our Sunday Next Gen Cup series. But what we were finding is we didn't have anybody tanking their I ratings, but whenever there was a money race, we would go from 20 cars to 30, and then nobody would show up for the next month if it was a money race. So we dropped that. We do give out Joe Six-Pack coffee mugs, and every once in a while I'll pick a random finisher from the race, and they'll get a coffee mug and a bag of our coffee sponsor, which I roasted at home, so I call it Soma Coffee. And they'll get a bag of that, coffee mug, and I have probably 8 or 9 of those reusable cloth or plastic shopping bags that you get at the track from the fan walks. That is just so full of stuff that I have no more room to put on the walls of my 3-room man cave. So I'll just go to the bag and throw in a die cast, throw in a pair of sunglasses, pack it up. We call it the Joe Six-Pack Care Package. And the guys get it. They love it. Next thing you know, they're all over their homepage and iRacing pages posting pictures with their Joe Six-Pack coffee mugs and having a real good time with it. So that's how we do that.
Great question for you, as somebody that runs leagues as well. Does more money always equal more problems? So when you have those big races, do you have to do more work as an admin either during the race or after the race?
Season 1 we did, basically because everything we did, our scoring we did it manually before I discovered that iRacing has different scoring packages you could use. There was a lot more promotion for it, and basically season 1, I would not race in the money leagues. I would do race control. So it was kind of a little stressful there, trying to, do the helicopter view and keep track of where everybody was and find out who's driving too aggressive and bouncing people out and putting up with the nonsense after that. So yeah. So we basically just drop the money races. If we do anything, it'll be one in January, an endurance race, which will be an entry fee. But like I said, I've now got 7 admins that can help out with it, and a bunch of us will probably do race control. So yeah, when you get a money league or a money race, there's a lot more, maybe not a lot more work, but a lot more stress, because you got to make sure you're not playing favorites for anybody that's already in the league like that, and you don't want to have your admins winning all the time, especially in a money race. So I'll sit out those races because I'm the league owner, and I'm also the one putting up most of the funding for the league too, unless we get a sponsor there. So yeah, it is a bit more work, but it is a lot more stress.
That's what we saw too. Because I think for our first series of Pro Series, they paid X amount per race and then X amount to reserve a car number for a team. Gotcha. And I'm going from memory. I want to say the total purse at the end of the season was, I think, $400 split up between everything. So there's a team championship, an individual championship, and towards the end of the season, I'd be the broadcaster, and we hired out some good guys to do race control. But I'm even watching from the broadcast point of view of these guys doing some silly moves and just thinking mid-broadcast, like, man, I'm going to have somebody in the driver's meeting after this that's going to rip me a new one for something. It definitely took a little bit of the fun away, for sure, with the money beyond the line.
Yeah. So tell me about your drivers' meetings. Do you have those after every race?
Yeah, I try and host a debrief for guys, because at the end of the day, I am the owner. The race control guys, they work for me. So don't go to my race control and throw rocks and start screaming.
Gotcha.
They frankly don't get paid enough. If you got a problem, bring it up with me one-on-one. Let's hash it out, man to man, and we'll see if we can work it out. And sometimes the answer is, I can't do anything about this, or I did my best about this. And sometimes drivers, once they get the red mist kind of out of their eyes post race and look at their replays, they realize, oh no, I'm the guy who caused all that.
Yeah.
So usually it works out pretty well, but I try and give drivers a chance to debrief, preferably one-on-one after a race.
Yep.
Because ultimately the buck stops with me, for better or worse.
That's true. We have a standing rule where, of course, you're out there on the track. You could cause the race, cause the incident or the accident, but of course it's not your fault. It never is. You never want to claim that. So we have a standing rule where you get one shot on the mic to go after the guy, call him a dumbass. He'll call you a dumbass, and then you take it private. If it continues, you'll either get muted for the race or chucked off the track. That's how we keep that under control. With the worst thing that happened was we had one of our sponsors, guy up there north of the border in Canada. He was a painter, did really, really nice wraps and liveries for people, and he sponsored 3 races in a row for $50 a race. He bought an ad with our broadcaster at the time, and then just started wrecking people and dropping F-bombs and everything. So we punted him. We gave him one warning, and then he's kept on with the F-bombs. So we just tossed him right out of the race then. Then he goes on the chat page of the broadcaster and starts reaming everybody out. So the broadcaster got rid of him too. So that's why we got that rule. You get one shot to call the guy a dumbass, and then take it private or take it home. That's how we handle that.
Yeah, there's not enough time for it. Again, we're spending our time and putting on God knows how many hours to make these shows in every sense of the word, be it a podcast, a broadcast, or a good race. Like, we're putting in our hours over here. And even with the Pro Series, we advertise this as, hey, you're paying big money to be here.
Yeah.
We're not going to tolerate the official lobby shenanigans. So if I have to send you $20 and tell you to go somewhere else, I've got no qualms with it. But it's supposed to be fun. We're all pretend race car drivers here on the weekdays, just trying to battle it out, enjoy it for what it is.
Yep.
And the other thing we hammer home in our pre-drivers meeting before every race, it costs you absolutely nothing in a race if you're involved in an incident, throw the old virtual hand out the window and say, hey, you know what? That might have been me. I might have screwed up. I'm sorry. It costs absolutely nothing for you to admit you're wrong. But it's always tough because, as a racer myself, I get it. You got red mist, and it's usually somebody else's fault until you review the incident, and then you realize, oh, I caused that.
Yeah, because you can't see when you're in the car. All you can see is looking at your windshield, and it's like, no, I didn't do that. And then you look at the replay, and it's like you said, oh, yeah, I guess I did do that. So what do you use for scoring? How do you figure your points?
I use Sim Racer Hub, formerly known as Dan Lisa.
Yep.
And the Pro Series, I did an awful job our first season. It's one of those logistical nightmares I learned as I go, because we actually tied the points to the car number and not the driver, such as like iRacing would do by default. So that way, if teams wanted to swap out, the 355 car for that day and put in a ringer for a certain race, you could do so. So I'd have to actually record it all on a Google sheet and then manually add it to the results and stuff. And it was a major, major headache. It was really cool, but not at all worth the work that went into it. So I think next season going around, we are going to tie it to each driver, and we'll allow subs, but it's not going to be a week in, a week out having 30 cars all play musical chairs to figure out where they're going to be sitting next week.
Interesting. The first season, I think it was first season or first two. First season when we just had the Gen 6 Cup cars, I would export the finals in from iRacing on a CSV to Google Excel, or not Microsoft Excel. Shows you how much I know the tech stuff, right? And I'm terrible with Excel. And I would spend hours putting in the points. Then we had a driver rating where we would take your average points and deduct a quarter point for each incident, and that would give you like a ranking, like a quarterback rating in football. And of course, I would post it, and then one of my admins would call me and say, I think you're off a line on the scoring because you're showing first place points and there's no driver there, and all the way down to the bottom, the last driver doesn't have any points. So go back in and fix it.
Do it all again.
Do it all again. So then I was just messing around on iRacing, and I saw they had their points thing there, and I'm like, oh, this is automatic. And then you can also do custom stuff. So this year for all our leagues, we're doing ARCA scoring, which gives you a chance. If you win the pole, you get a point. You lead a lap, you get a point, which makes caution flags really interesting during the points battle. If you're running up front and you say, well, do I go in and get tires and run better, or how bad do I need a point because everybody else goes in, you stay out, and you get a point for leading the lap under caution. You get a point for leading the most laps, and then the winner gets, I think it's 46 points, and second place gets 42. And watching our points for season 3, everything it's pretty legit and it works out. We've got a pretty tight points race going on. So,
Yeah.
and that
then you can focus on actually putting on a race instead of punching numbers behind the scenes and focus on the stuff that I think matters more.
Yeah. Because the last thing you want to do, because they said when you're running the race, we race at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. I'm usually down here at 2:30 going over the race setups because I'm going to screw something up. So I go over it and over it and over it. And then after the race, trying to figure out what the chatter is on Discord and getting the results out. And now, usually within an hour after the race, the points are done instead of having to spend hours doing it. Because sometimes I just wouldn't do it the next day. And then some of the
drivers are going, am I in the points lead now? Who got penalized? I need to know right now. And we also added a mandatory cooldown period. So we have, I think it was an hour-long area to file protests if need be. And then we told all our drivers, give us 24 hours. That way race control and myself can debrief. More importantly, go to bed and just not have to do this right afterwards. And because then it becomes dangerously close to job territory and a little bit further away from fun territory.
Yeah. So is that the only series that you run, the Goon Squad Pro Street Stocks, or do you run any others?
We have the Pro Series. We're firing up a Pro-Am series for guys that maybe want a feeder series and want a little bit less intimidating place to get into. It's a much cheaper buy-in. And we've been kind of toying around of a street as well, or what car it's going to be.
Yeah.
But that's something I've been thinking about as well, because the idea got into my head. I ran a Miata race, an official one, and it was something like 35 or 40 cars at Spa, or 35. You still there?
Yes, I am.
All right, cool. Sorry, I heard a disconnect noise. All right, cool. It was a 35, 40 car Miata series at Daytona or Spa, and I was actually driving going, this is an absolute blast. Like, I'm having so much fun.
Oh, the Miatas are great.
It kind of circles back. I want to run things that I want to race as well. So that's kind of where the head's at. And plus, it gets me more broadcasting jobs.
Yeah. So you said you do this full time, pretty much, right? For the broadcasting. How many employees do you have, or who works with you?
Who would have thought we ended up here? I was in a Discord looking for a tour modified series a long time ago. I don't know, 6-7 months ago. And all of a sudden one day they do a mass ping to everybody in their channel. Hey, we need a producer for tonight. We'll give you $10 worth of beer money and we'll provide the software. Who's in?
Oh wow!
I look at my girlfriend and I go, well, that sounds kind of fun. Let's try this out. And did that for a while, and I think it was terrible pay, Greg. It was worse than podcasting. It was $4 an hour or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
It was $10 flat rate for the gig. So if you had a good clean race, everybody went green, you made $10 an hour. And if it was a a 3-hour caution fest at Martinsville, you made a whopping $3.33 an hour. So it was a cool experience. Then I kind of realized, wait a second, there's something to this. I'm good at it. Let's scale this thing up under my own brand and see what happens.
There you go. A couple people in the chat room. Somebody saying hi, East. Mav actually and Slim Jim 355. You know those guys or folks?
Oh, Greg, I'm gonna give you a hint. I'm Slim Jim 355.
Okay. Gotcha.
Same branding I have on everything: motorcycles, Twitch, you name it. Is Slim Jim 355. Mav is one of my guys and race control guys, oddly enough, that helps me out over at Goon Squad, and
there you go.
One of our big sponsored drivers. So really cool dude. Everybody in my Discord, all cool guys. Everybody I associate with in iRacing is good people.
Yeah, what about that Slim Jim 355 guy, though? I'm not too sure about him.
Sketchy character. He's terrible off the track. He's a mediocre broadcaster at best, and kind of nefarious all the way around.
How do you set up your fees for broadcasting? Do you have different packages? For instance, we're using PTM Racing TV, and they have like a 1-hour package with one announcer and then 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after. If you want to run ads, it's another $5. If you want a 2 hour program with one or two, they charge differently. What's your menu of like for?
Menu, I think that's the best way to describe it. Hit the nail on the head. Yeah, starts at $25 an hour for a live show, one producer and commentator. I've got one full time guy, Mason, that works with me, and then it goes up from there. So I can pay, co-commentators, color commentators, what have you.
Gotcha.
And it's a hour minimum, so $25 an hour for that one show, and this kind of scales up from there. And then we do something which I haven't seen before on iRacing, so maybe I'm giving away the trade secrets here, but we do tape delay broadcasts as well. Starts at $20 an hour, and that's for those leagues. So let's say 4 o'clock on a Sunday, Joe Sixpack and everybody else is put on a league race, and nobody can find a broadcaster because we're not few and far between. But that's a tough time spot to fill.
Yeah.
What I have is leagues will send me the replay file. And I will broadcast a tape delay with that replay file. It looks just the same as the live show.
Yeah.
And then we'll have it updated to our channel within 48 hours. So that way it allows me to double book time slots. So if I've got a live show at Thursday at 9 and another good group of friends run a league also has that same time slot, I can have their show live to them on Friday. And it works very well for certain leagues and not so much for others.
Got it. Well, why wouldn't it? Tell me, go into that a little bit. Why it would work good for some and not for others? What makes the difference between it making working good and not so good?
Well, I think every league's audience is different. I have some leagues that have spectacular live viewership. They'll have 30, 40 people hanging out, watching the broadcast, hopping in the chat, cheering on their drivers. And I'll have some leagues where we'll have 2, 3 different people watching this live stream over the course of however many hours. But the next day, the views just skyrocket. And their target demographic is actually their customers or their family. So if it's a late night series or it's a series where it's mostly the racers watching, they're watching it the next day or 2 days later anyway. So that league's thinking, well, hey, I can save some money and let's just do it the tape delay. The downside is, again, you don't have that live viewership available to your fans at home, and you don't have podium interviews as well, unless they record it in-house and send it to me and I add it in post.
Okay. Which do you like doing better, the live or the tape delay?
Tough. I like them both. I love having a live audience. I think I'm a fairly decent showman, and I like entertaining crowds. And I also like that tape delay allows me to afford food week in, week out, so I can finish up a broadcast and then the next morning wake up at 0800 and knock out a tape delay. And it kind of helps balance it and allows me to just keep chugging along.
It always comes back to food, doesn't it?
Yeah, damn food thing, man. We've given up on racing slicks, and now we're just going to breadsticks.
Well, you see, you're down in Georgia, so a roof over your head isn't as important as it is up here. Although I've been in Atlanta shortly after the Christmas season in January when we used to go down and buy Christmas, and I would bring a windbreaker, and all of a sudden it's like 2 degrees in Atlanta, and I'm like, it's not supposed to be this cold down here. So whereabouts are you in Georgia?
Covington, Georgia, 45 minutes east of Atlanta. So next time you're down here, I'll grab you a beer. You can come by the farm.
Oh,
it's pretty rural. I mean, I live on a family farm. We've got goats and chickens. And I'm gonna jab at you here. It's always so funny when I talk to all my Yankee friends. My girlfriend YZF Maggie, who's tuned in tonight, she's from Michigan, so she'll come down, or she obviously she lives in Georgia now, and she'll be super comfortable outside, 40, 50 degrees, and she's in shorts and a t-shirt and just having a great time. And I'm in long pants, thermal underwear, and a big heavy jacket just because I'm not built for it.
So you're not too far from Augusta then?
No, I don't think so. Maybe 45 minutes an hour. It's kind of not quite in the middle of Atlanta and Augusta, I think.
Yeah. All right, because I've got family in Augusta.
Yeah, come on down, man. We'll take you to the motorcycle track and show you a good time.
Okay. One of the funniest things, I was staying out in Buckhead in Atlanta, and I'd walk from my hotel, go to the Waffle House, because we don't have Waffle Houses up here. It's the best, worst food in America. Yes. And then I go to catch the, what do they call the train down there, the MARTA?
Yeah, MARTA.
Okay. So I'd stand there waiting for the MARTA, and it's like 2 degrees out, and they said, well, all the trains are delayed because, the steel shrinks when it gets cold. And I'm like, we don't do this in New York. 0 degrees, the trains run on a regular time. So it's so funny. But then again, Up here, when we have a heat wave, when it hits 95 to 100, the rare times it does for 4 or 5 days, they'll slow the trains down because they're under the assumption that the steel is expanding and they want to keep the train on the tracks. And I'm like, they don't do that in Georgia. It's so funny, the stuff like
It was
that.
always so much fun. I'd go race at Ohio, Mid Ohio, the track. And again, all my local Yankee buddies, they'd be out there shorts, t-shirts, having the time of their life, but I'm freezing, just miserable and hating it.
Yeah.
But then they would come down to Road Atlanta in June or July, and they would be dying, like requesting IVs and didn't want to be in their leathers. And I'm in my element and loving it. So it's always fun having the guys from across the country get together and be miserable at different times of the year.
Oh, the heat and the humidity down there. We're thinking about pulling up stakes and getting away from the People's Republic of New York, because they'll taxing you just to death up here. But with it comes some services, but a lot of nonsense to go with it. And I keep thinking of all the summers I spent in Augusta and Aiken, South Carolina area, and it's like you walk outside in July. Well, first off, there's a paper plant down there somewhere near Jackson, where they take the trees and make them into the paper pulp and stuff like that. And it's not stinky, but it would combine with the heat and the humidity. It's just the smell just drives you crazy. And I'm not sure I want to go that far south. But then again, it's 29 degrees up here tonight, and I wouldn't mind some 80-degree weather and such. So,
Greg, when you come down here, do all the Southerners immediately pick up that you're not from here?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Okay, because that happens to me whenever I go up north. And by Georgia standards, I don't have much of a Southern hillbilly accent.
Oh, no,
but by Michigan or Ohio standards, they immediately go, yeah, you're not from here, are you? Like, no.
I got on last week, and we did the pre-race or pre-show talk like you and I were chatting before we went on the air. And it was guys from the HCK Beagles Racing League. Great bunch of guys. We had so much fun, and they're chomping at the bit to come back on. And the guy's name is Greg Turner, and he gets on there and he goes, "How you doing?" I go, "Southern boy." He goes, "Darn right." And I says, "Where are you from?" He says, "Well, just out of Georgia." And I said, "You ever been to Augusta?" He goes, "Yeah, I got family there." We started talking about the same towns: Augusta, Georgia, which is a big town, then Jackson, South Carolina, which is East Podunk, and Aiken and such like that. And I said, "Ever go to the drag strip in Jackson?" He goes, "Yeah." So it was so cool talking to everybody like that and sharing, the same background and, summers down there and such like that. Now, $25 to do a broadcast certainly isn't a lot of money.
I think it depends which of the leagues you have.
Do you have sponsors that you bring with you that pay you extra? So like
not yet, but as I'm growing the channel, we've been very, very blessed to grow very rapidly. It's becoming an opportunity to me as the YouTube channel is monetized as well.
Oh, okay.
But from my point of view, with a little bit of a sales and marketing background, for me, maybe I'm just undervaluing myself, but it didn't seem cost effective for me to bring sponsors on. I think kind of the going average rate is $5 to $7 CPM cost per mil 1,000 impressions for regular traditional advertising. And if the channel's bringing in 4,000 or 5,000 views a month, I'm going, well, is it even worth approaching so and so for $20 a month?
Yeah.
So for me, I don't feel like I'm quite at that level yet, but it's something I'd like to entertain as I talk to more individuals, more sim enthusiast companies as well.
Yeah, I would think it would be kind of hard to sell a racing broadcast on a cost per 1,000 impressions as opposed to just saying $5 or $10 a race and, like that. I don't think.
I agree. I mean, my whole thing is value, value, value. If I keep providing all of my awesome customers the most value possible, somewhere the universe will repay me. It could be sponsorship or racing. It could be I meet some guy that helps me out when I really need it, or just I'm very, again, lucky to meet so many cool people through iRacing and sim racing all the way around. So, what is it? Under promise, over deliver. That's the phrase. I'm sorry, bear with me.
Yeah. What was I going to say there? Because it's hard to get. I don't know any leagues that I'm aware of that get like 1,000 viewers. Like we were talking about earlier, I just we're live on Twitch now, and I've got 50 followers, but we just started the interviews a few weeks ago. The podcast started out just as a weekly update for our league to keep everybody up to breast and give me something to do and say, hey, I'm broadcasting again. So it's hard. It really is, So, and I know some other broadcasters, the one that was doing some of our races earlier this year, Atlanta Racing, he's an affiliate on Twitch. So his race is like $25, and then they run the commercials and they throw in some nickels and dimes for that. So what platforms do you broadcast on?
So with a multi-producer show, so with myself and Mason, he can have his own events. We found YouTube has been the best way. So much like you're running your podcast tonight directly to Twitch, you have that one key to tie into your channel, and that is it. So for YouTube, it's a key per video or URL that you set up. So I can have a Friday 8 p.m. gig, and Mason can as well, and we can still output to the same channel without stepping on each other's toes.
Gotcha.
Now, that being said, yes, we miss out on the nickels and dimes of Twitch. I'm an affiliate on my personal channel, and yeah, you could probably make $15, $20 more a month, but to be able to cover more gigs was more cost effective in our plan going forward.
Yeah. And I was messing around on Twitch because, of course, being non-techie, like when you open up Twitch, I found Twitch Studio to be very user-friendly once I talked to somebody to do it. And I'm like, all right, so how do I get the audio up onto a podcast? So what I was doing, show you how non-techie I am, I would rerun the Twitch broadcast, put the microphone next to the speaker and record it on Anchor and upload it that way. Then just last weekend, I say, oh, I can download the audio, upload it to Anchor, and then I'm on 7 different podcast platforms. And as soon as I'm done with that, I upload it to YouTube. So we're on like 7 or 8 different platforms like that, and it's starting to get a lot of downloads. We had usually 30, 40 people will watch this broadcast over the course of the 7 or 10 days that it's up on Twitch. But when I uploaded the audio to the 7 different podcast platforms, all of a sudden I did that like last Sunday, and we've had between views on YouTube, which are still pretty low, Twitch here, and the podcast platform since last Sunday, over 300 views and downloads already. So it was like, wow, people are finally finding out about us. So it was pretty cool to do that.
I think we're in a podcast culture now. I mean, I never really got into it until I think maybe before COVID, I started listening to podcasts as well. But I have a contractor gig that involves me with a fair amount of driving every now and then. So I'll load up your broadcast when I'm on the road or something else on YouTube. And even if it's not a visually enticing broadcast, even if it's just an audio type deal, it's still something to go. And I think podcasts and audiobooks help pass time more than just your random shuffle of music or what they have.
Yeah. I started hanging around radio stations when I was 13, and I wanted to be that DJ, because back then every town had a small radio station, and people made a lot of money because there was no cable news. We would have to up here to listen to news from Albany or New York City like that. So the small mom and pop radio stations were a market that made a lot of money, and they just fell in love with radio. But gosh, that's gone by the wayside with all the consolidations and everything going on. But I'm still a talk radio junkie. I don't listen to any of the national right wing or left wing people because they're just preaching to the choir. So one of my favorite stations is out of Manitoba, Winnipeg, Manitoba, CJOB, and it's an AM station. And it's more, the talk radio there is more like a talk show like we're doing now. It's a conversation. The host isn't trying to pin somebody in a corner and pitch his right wing or left wing stuff. So I listen there. I listen to a station out in Alabama, quite a bit from Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand. That's kind of like a podcast because it's like an old time TV talk show. The guest is coming on to tell their story, and we're bantering back and forth just like we're doing now.
So, Greg, where do you see yourself taking your podcast? And then a follow-up to that, how do I help you get somebody else's camera on your podcast for the visual listeners here today?
I'm sure there's a way of on Twitch of getting another webcam on there. I just haven't asked or found out about it, so that would be kind of cool to have both on there. I'm sure it can be done. Where I see the podcast going, it originally started out where I was just going to be Wednesday nights and two 15-minute segments, and then at 8:30 I would do our league news, which would take another 15 minutes, and I'd be done in 45 minutes. But what I've had to do, because work, believe it or not, time is flying. We've been all talking for 50 minutes already, and it seems like just 10, doesn't it?
Yeah, time flies and you're killing it, my friend.
So what I did is I started contacting all the guests, and I'm like, look, 15 minutes isn't enough. So I started splitting them, still doing it Wednesday night, but I got another one tomorrow night, and probably looking to do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. I've got one on Sunday night because that's the only time the guy could make it. So it goes where it goes. And what I do is when we're done here and I do the league story, your logo's still going to be up there in case some of my guys that are on the league want to find out about Goon Squad. And there's a couple ads for some charity races that are going on. One of them's going on tonight, probably going to be over by the time we're done talking about it. And then when I'm done, I'll take the link here and put it up on a couple iRacing pages. I'll put it up on our league page, the podcast page on Facebook, and just grow the audience that way. Do I look to make any money on it? Hey, you want to buy me a beer? Buy me a beer. That's fine. But I do it mostly for fun, and I just love iRacing. And there's, like I said, it's a small community. I want to get everybody together and have people listen and say, hey, I need that guy to do race control later on. And I'm booked with guests till the end of the year, and I'm starting to book into January awesome. Now. And it's just fun. It gives me something to do, and like be back on the radio again. And
that's gotta prevent burnout for you as well. Because I get asked that all the time. Like, hey, you're broadcasting 5-6 days a week, be it tape delays or live shows. Do you get burnt out? I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but coming with your passion from radio just makes it a lot more fun. And as you and I both know, if you're having fun, it's not really a work, so it kind of makes it go by. Am I correct there?
Yeah, and I started to get a little burned out on the talk radio thing down in the small market about 45 minutes south here called Kingston, New York, because there would be so much going on, and Ulster County down there, very politically active. So always stuff to talk about. So I'd come into the studio loaded for bear, and my co-host would too. And then we look at the schedule, and it's booked with guests for the whole 2-hour show. Somebody from the United Way talking about their fundraising, and then here comes the person from the YMCA telling the same stories they did, before. And it just got to be to the point where I would just sit there and just lament, waiting for the show to get over. But my co-host, she did radio in FM radio in New York City during its heyday. She did in Detroit. Her husband is Tony Levin from King Crimson, one of the big bands of the 60s, and she's going on tour with Peter Gabriel and all these guys. So it was great talking to her. And then I was like, wait a minute, you're married to Tony Levin? Is that the guy from King Crimson, which is a 60s band? She said, yeah. And he said, we're going, I won't be here next month because we're going on a South American tour with Peter Gabriel. I'm like, wow, it was great. But like I say, when you want to talk about stuff, and this is different because there's no time slots here. Like I said, we can talk for an hour, we can talk for 2 hours, we can talk for 10 minutes and be done. So it's something different. But I really started losing my steam on the radio because it got to be you want to talk about stuff, and then the station owner had scheduled all these regular guests all the time. And I really enjoyed doing it because the county executive and the state assemblyman that were down there called, both Democrats, they called the station owner and said, you got to get Greg on the air more. And I was known as being fairly conservative. And when you had like the big time left wing Democrats saying, get this guy on the air more, you can talk to him. And somebody said, well, why are you so nice to the liberals? And he goes, you call yourself a conservative. I said, yeah, but I know when to come up for air. That's the difference.
Yeah. And like
So
drawing similarities to iRacing as well. I think kind of people forget that you can be that racer on track, but you don't have to fly off the handle and throw
sure,
away your personal reputation, which is far more valuable than whatever you're going to be as an iRacer and stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I mean it. I don't know. Maybe I mean you're obviously my elder here, and maybe I'm just very old school at heart, but I'm still of the belief that your word and who your name is carries a lot of weight at the end of the
Oh
day.
yeah,
So
it does.
you throw that away for silly reasons. If you're that guy on the air
Yeah.
wherever you are and you're just coming across as caustic, then nobody's going to want to be around you.
No, that's true because there's one thing anybody can be a keyboard warrior and type whatever you want, even using your real name, because you don't have to face the person. But when someone's calling you up and they're on a tirade and they're politically 180 degrees opposite of you, we had for a small station, we had 4 or 5 thousand listeners every morning. It was the number one show in the market. Okay, big deal. That's like having the number one McDonald's on Mars. You're not, that's what it was. But it was a good feeling, and you really gotta be careful because it's a mic. You can't hit delete or turn off your computer. Because even I've done that when I've gotten on a tirade with somebody online or something like that, and they're just being a real dork. And then all of a sudden you type something, and then all of a sudden everybody's coming on, and so delete, turn off the computer, go hide, go make coffee. It wasn't me. You can't do that when
I
it's a
think
mic like this,
I think kids these days, and I'm going to use that term in full blown irony, don't realize that we used to get punched in the face for saying something really dumb to people.
Well,
And I
now they're
think
now they're
I don't
doing
know
it
what
again.
generation that was lost on, but
Yeah.
that was a thing that used to happen. Kids at home.
Well, now it's happening again, but it's called road rage, and if you just look at somebody wrong, it's not punch in the face; it's a bullet in the head.
Now, funny you say that. I was in Miami. I worked in the firearms industry for the last 2 years for full
Mm-hmm.
contact. So I've got a little bit of training, and I've got the opportunity to work with some really cool high speed guys, and it
Cool.
helps me get more proficient at everything. And I think it opens up your eyes, like you said, that a little bit of road rage can go a long way. We were
Yeah.
outside of Miami for an airsoft event a year ago, and there was a lady having horrific road rage and
Yeah.
going wild. And my passenger was in the car and kind of egging it on and returning some hand gestures and stuff like that. And I looked over, I was like, hey, I don't really want to get in a gunfight today.
Exactly.
And like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know if you watch the news or not, but people are freaking crazy.
so, so yeah, like you said, we threw punches. These guys throw bullets today. So
Yeah,
it's
different world, man.
yeah, it definitely is. What else was I going to say? So we talked about the tape delay. Tell me about the All American ARCA League you broadcast for. What's
So those guys run Friday nights. It's a fixed series, ARCA series, and I got to give them credit. This is their second season. I've had the pleasure of working with them for both seasons.
Mhm.
They booked me from day one, which is really cool, and I'm very appreciative. They constantly field about 43 car grids. It's fairly cheap to enter. I think $10 for the season.
That's
Covers
pretty good.
broadcasting fees and admin fees and just general headache fees. And they've gotten to the point where they actually have to do a qualifying session as they've
Oh,
had
wow.
up to 50 cars enter in a night, and they can only take the top 43 into the race. So
That's
really
huge.
cool group, a lot of talent there. I think their biggest, I don't want to even say problem, but the biggest thing they're running into with such a big series, it's such a mixed bag of skill set.
Yeah.
And when you get 43 knuckleheads out on track, and this may be a generational thing once more, but I think people forget with iRacing, you're battling with people from across the world
Yeah.
that are putting in real life man hours to not go slow. So to
Exactly.
get 20th, 25th in a 43 car field could be pretty good depending where you're at in your racing career. But I think people come from maybe move to iRacing after playing console games or single player games where you're kind of expected to win. And then the AI are going to kind of move out of your way. It kind of gets lost in the sauce. But again, you're racing real people putting in work here. So
Yeah.
sometimes you got to be happy with a 20th and 25th and not go four wide on lap 3.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've won 2 races in the last year, and they were both practice races for our league. We do like tomorrow night will be the first practice session for Talladega. Friday night we'll do a full length practice race, and that's all I've won. I won was it 2 weeks ago. I won. Did I win Kansas? I'm trying to think. I think I won Kansas last week and then Las Vegas a year ago. which is great. I mean, I win. I'm going nuts. I don't care. There's only 8 cars in the
you
practice
earned it.
race.
A win's a win.
Yeah, and the 8 people that show up for the practice race are the best drivers in the league. So I'm like, yeah, I beat this guy. I beat the guy from Ireland. I'm going nuts. But I'm usually, if it's an iRacing public lobby and it's Carb Cup, pickup truck like that, I'm usually top 10. Haven't raced much in the last year because doing the leagues, I was getting up there in the top 5 all the time. The official series, I'm around the top 10. In our league, I finished 7th in trucks out of 30 people in the league. We fielded maybe 12 trucks. And right now I'm 9th in the next gen league, our Sunday league, and we usually field about 22. And I'm perfectly happy with that. Perfectly happy being mid pack because I'm not going to go out there and win a lot of races, which is fine with me.
But you're one of those guys as well that you enjoy racing for the racing. I'm not here to pick up wins. I don't care if it's oval or the roadside, which I'm starting to get into a little bit more heavily now. Those heated battles, be it for first or 10th, is what gets my heart rate through the roof and again scratches that itch of the real life racing that I've been missing desperately. Just having those fun battles, and then if I do mess up or the other guy messes up, I crash my pretend car and I save a bunch of pretend money. But the racing's the fun part.
Oh, it's bad. You can have some, great battles for 15th and 14th, and that's I love doing that, being back in the mid pack. So I'm glad that as the league owner, I don't win a lot because our admins are usually up there in the top, but they're also the ones that come out to practice, and it's usually the better racers in the league or someone that's really serious that ends up being in league management. Like, so we just expanded to 7 admins. And the 3 that came in, the one guy, he won the truck league last night. And it was funny because his 2 sons race, and one of his sons is an admin. And so I did this little poster today for him. I said, well, I got to have your championship. As far as I'm concerned, you won, but I've got to run it through the computer. And he's like, what do you mean run it through the computer? I said, hold on. I got to have it certified, just joking with him. And then so I sent him this little meme, I guess you want to call it, today, and it says, official race certification, Joe Six-Pack Pick 'em Up Truck Series League champion, number 84, Anthony's father. And this guy's name is Wayne Garland, and his son is Anthony. I said, number 84, Anthony's father, you're the winner. Congratulations. Just as a joke, and he got a big kick out of it because we just bust each other's chops all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything besides a little bit of time to get your racers more on board and kind of reinforces like, hey, we're having fun with our dudes several times a week. Just focus on that part.
That's for sure. Let me see, anything else? I think I've covered just about anything unless you want to add some. Oh, if somebody wants to have you broadcast them, how do they find you? Where's your...
Yeah, check me out, teamgoonsquad.com. I'll post it in the chat here as well.
Okay.
Again, I'll say it real slowly for the guys that listen on Spotify later. Thank you, guys. teamgoonsquad.com. You can book me through there. Send me a message here on Twitch. I'm going to join the Six-Pack Racing family after this podcast as well, so I should be able to get contacted through there. And Facebook, James East, Instagram, SlimJim355. I also want to give a quick shout-out to Jay Penn. He's tuning in tonight, supporting us as well. He's race control for my league as well as All-American ARCA, so he stays very busy. He runs his own car series as well on Saturdays that I record, broadcast on tape delay. So super cool guy. Just want to make sure he got a shout-out tonight on the air as well. And I guess, well, I'm going to run through my list of plugs here so I don't get fined.
Go ahead.
FEG PC Truck Series running on Monday. Camping Universe Truck Series runs on Tuesdays. We've got the Pro Series I run on Thursdays. All-American ARCA on Fridays. And some of my favorites, OBRL, they're a bunch of older guys, minimum age 35. They run Sunday mornings, another good group of guys, as well as the League Zero Formula 3 series. I cover them live on Thursday. So, and the biggest thing I want to make sure I hammer home time and time and again, I do my best to associate myself with good people. So again, podcast, broadcast, doesn't matter what it is.
Cool.
I want to surround myself with friends throughout the day. So that's why I'm very fortunate to be associated with the people that I am.
Very good. So what I'll be doing afterwards, if you're getting anybody that's out there listening right now, we are live on Twitch, and tomorrow or shortly after that, I'll be uploading to Anchor twitchbroadcast.com, which will send it out to 6 other podcast platforms. You can also watch this forever on YouTube as the Twitch broadcast. They take it down after 2 weeks as to not use up a lot of space on their server farms, I guess. And we also promote quite heavily our racing league and upcoming podcasts on Twitch, Instagram, and that crazy TikTok world that's out there. We get so many views, like 5,000 views all across our different stuff on TikTok. So people are out there watching. So, James, I want to say thank you so much for being on tonight. And like I said, if you want to join our Facebook page, it's Joe Sixpack Racing on Facebook. Joe Sixpack Podcast on Facebook is basically just a placeholder to throw up who's coming in next week like that and such like that. And we'll say thanks for stopping by.
Awesome. Greg, thank you so much for having me.
You're
Thank you as well to
welcome.
everybody that tuned in tonight from across the world. Without those folks, we wouldn't have anybody to talk to. It makes our job tougher. Yeah, I'll keep in touch and truly appreciate you, Greg. Have a fantastic night, and I'll see you at the next one.
You too. Okay, take care. Good night. That was James East from Team Goon Squad, and he's a full-time broadcaster. And like you said, you could get a hold of him, teamgoonsquad.com. Look him up, James East, on Facebook. Leave him a message here. I'm sure he'll get it. And some of the broadcasting he does is FEG PC Truck Series, Camping Universe Truck Series, the Team Goon Squad Pro Street Stocks. Say that 4 times fast or after a beer. And also Tape Delay. So if he's already busy doing a live broadcast, he can still pick you up later if you just send him the replay of the race. James, thanks a lot. And as we say, it is the guests that make the broadcast. Now we're going to go on to some news for the Joe Sixpack Racing League. The first, I want to let you know about a race that is probably over by now because it's being put on by some friends of mine up in New York, but I'm sure they will still take some donations if you're interested. It is for ocular melanoma awareness, and it's the I Believe 40. And at Knoxville Raceway, 40-lap A-Main Pro late models going on there. Sponsored by 3 Wide Designs and some friends of mine out near Buffalo that were one of my first guests on the podcast here, and that race is going on tonight. But if you want to support ocular melanoma awareness, give 3 Wide Designs a call, find out some more information about that. And November 28th, Lone Star Racing, the second annual Toys for Tots charity race. Now, the race is full. They have no more slots open for cars, but they are taking donations. $10 donation puts you in the running to win a really cool rig that you can set up your iRacing equipment on. And also, if you go to the Lone Star Raceway Discord, they're having a contest for the best Christmas paint job on the car. So that's Lone Star Racing Toys for Tots second annual charity race coming up on November 28th. Fixed Set Cars, give them a holler. Race is full as far as entries, but they are taking donations to win a rig setup. And those guys were also on here, and we had a great time talking with them. As far as what's going on in the Joe Sixpack Racing League, last night we had our season finale for Season 3. Wayne Garland, driver number 84, won the race last night, and he finished the season with 398 points. Josh Bromfield, 394, was second place. He was our winner Season 2 on trucks, and when we ran on dirt, which included the Figure 8 and the Rallycross tracks and some other crazy tracks on dirt, Josh Benton finished third with 349 points, and Anthony Garland, fourth place with 239. And if you're watching right now, you can see where it says Wild Aces finish 1 through 4. Those 4 are a team on our league called Wild Aces, and they do one heck of a job communicating during the race, setting up pit stop strategies and everything. And they will be on the podcast here on November 30th talking about team strategies. And even in a laid-back league like ours, the team strategies they use communicating on Discord during the race is putting those guys up there in the top 10 just about every time we're out on the track. And they finished 1 through 4 in the truck series this year. And hey, we met our goal. We have 51 of 50 followers. Thank you so much. And all I got to do is just get another hour of broadcasting in and get average viewers up, and I'll become an affiliate on Twitch, and they'll throw me a nickel every now and then. Hey, every nickel counts, right? Well, as you know, the Joe Sixpack Racing merch shop is up and open. Over 200 items with that crazy Joe Sixpack flag logo on it. And any purchase, $3 goes towards the league to help with costs and prizes and such like that. And you can find us at cafepress.com/Joe Sixpack Racing League. We have mugs, we have coffee mugs, we have hats, we have men's and ladies' pajamas, and all kinds of other crazy stuff, keychains, Christmas ornaments. Go check it out. And again, $3 of every purchase goes to offset the cost of running the league. Our next gen cars this week, we raced at Kansas. It was a fantastic race, 75 laps, only 2 cautions, one on lap 3, I believe, and then one a little bit later in the race. And we do run a competition caution at lap 40, which is something we are 40% through the race. So the competition caution was at lap 30 this week. And what that does is just lets the back runners have one chance to regroup and catch up. And what was really interesting was the competition caution was at lap 30, and our fuel window for the race was 25 to 28 laps. So what do you do on the caution? So it was a great race. Dave Lamaga finished first. He beat Al Reed by, I think it was less than a couple tenths of a second. Robert Tuisco in third place. Josh Hale in fourth. Darrell Wells finished fifth. Keith Fonseca finished sixth. I finished seventh, my best finish this year. Johnny Barker, new driver, finished sixth. Chris Thothke, a new driver, finished ninth. And Josh Bromfield finished 12th. Of the top 10, I'm looking at 4, 5, 6 are new drivers with us this year. So giving some competition to us veterans, Lamaga, Reed, Tuisco, myself, and a couple others. Always good to see new drivers doing well there. The next gen Cup points for week 9 of 13. Dave Lamaga is in first place with 374 points, followed by Jonathan Humphrey, who's with us for the second season with 347. Anthony Garland, 336, is in third, followed by Josh Bromfield with 325. Robert Tuisco with 315 points. Al Reed, season 1 and 2 champion in the next gen Cup cars with 314. Seventh place, new driver Keith Fonseca with 313 points. Johnny Baker, a new driver, and I seem to always be running close to him in the race. He's in eighth with 291 points, and I'm holding my own right there in ninth place at 289 points. Next Gen Cup information coming up week 10 will be at Talladega. It will be 80 laps. There'll be 3 tire changes, 60% fuel load, 2 quick repairs, and 2 green-white checkers if needed. I'll have all the data tomorrow night for tomorrow night's first practice, track conditions, weather, etc. I'll have that up, as well as the car setups and everything. It will be broadcast live on PTM Racing TV. PTM Racing TV broadcasts live on Facebook Live on their Facebook page, later uploading to YouTube. And also don't forget the Lone Star Racing Toys for Tots second annual charity race. Look up Lone Star Racing on Facebook and take a chance for $10 to win yourself a great rig setup. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast, or tonight's broadcast. We'll be back on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. with Brett Wheeler. He's another broadcaster he owns Ultimate Dirt TV with 18,000 followers. So we're going to ask him if he can share a few thousand followers with us, or what do you do to get that many followers? And he's got an interesting racing story to tell. I'm not going to give any details. Let him bring those out tomorrow night. So that's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Brett Wheeler from Ultimate Dirt TV. I'd like to thank once again James East from TeamGoonSquad.com for being our guest tonight, talking about racing. And if you want them to broadcast your event, give them a holler at TeamGoonSquad.com. Look them up on Facebook, Instagram, like that. And if they're already busy with a live broadcast, they'll be happy to consider doing a tape delay for you. Just send them the race replay, and they'll do the voiceovers after that. Also like to thank PTM Racing TV for filling in when our regular broadcaster this year has not been available. They do a great job. And DTL Customs. It's Dave Lamaga. He does some of our paints. He does our promotional posters for the race. You can catch him on Instagram. He does some really cool graphics work and a lot of really good paint jobs there. And this has been Greg Draiss for the Joe Sixpack Racing League and the Joe Sixpack Podcast. You can watch this for 2 weeks on Twitch or for download later on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Shoutcast, Radio Public, and also the video upload to YouTube. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And if not, we will catch you on the track. Good night.